Om Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheswara Gurudeva Parabrahma Tatmai Shri Gurave Namaha. अखण्डमण्डलकारं व्याप्तं येन चराचरं तत्पदं दर्शितं येन तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। আমি সর্বপ্রথম পূজ্যপাদ শ্রীমৎ স্বামী রামকৃষ্ণানন্দজি মহারাজ এর চরণে আমি আমার প্রণাম নিবেদন করছি। আজকে শশী মহারাজের জন্মতিথির এই শুভ দিনে আমরা আয়োজিত করেছি এই ছোট্ট ধর্মসভার মতন, যেখানে আমরা পূজ্যপাদ মহারাজকে আমরা কথার মধ্য দিয়ে স্মরণ করব। সন্ধ্যাবেলা আমাদের সন্ধ্যা আরতিগমের সঙ্গে গুরু বন্দনাও পরিবেশিত হবে, লাইভ স্ট্রিমিং হবে আমাদের চ্যানেল সারদা কুটির মধ্য দিয়ে। তো আজ রামকৃষ্ণানন্দজি মহারাজের জন্মদিন, শশী মহারাজের জন্মদিনের এই উপলক্ষে তার জীবনের কিছু ঘটনা, জীবনের বিষয়ে আর্লি লাইফ এবং লাইফ উইথ রামকৃষ্ণ পরমহংস দেব, এই বিষয়গুলো নিয়ে আমরা আজকে চর্চা করব। তো শ্রীমৎ স্বামী রামকৃষ্ণানন্দজি মহারাজ আর্লি লাইফ। তো শুরু করার আগে প্রথমে আমি মহারাজের চরণে প্রণাম নিবেদন করব। Even while Swami Vivekananda was in the midst of his arduous labor in the West, he realized that more important work was waiting him in India. When the great leader returned to the motherland and made his triumphal tour from Colombo to Almora, it was the city of Madras that he first intimated to the eager listener of his plan of campaigns. Some of the citizens approached Swamiji with the request that he should kindly send one of his brother disciples to stay in Madras and establish a monastery which would become the center of religious teachings and philanthropic activities outlined by Swamiji in his address delivered in India and abroad. By the way of reply, he said, I shall send you one who is more orthodox than your most orthodox men of the south, and who is at the same time unique and unsurpassed in his worship of and meditation of on God. The very next steamer from Calcutta brought to Madras Swami Ramakrishnananda Ji Maharaj, where he started the Ramakrishna movement and the Ramakrishna order. Yeah, if we go on with the South monastic Velur Math or the Ramakrishna Math mission, then we will find the day of Swami Ramakrishnananda Ji Maharaj's birthday is celebrated with a great importance. In a few words, the leader had summarized the individual characteristics of the apostle in relation to the field work of which he was chosen. The South has all along been the stronghold for Orthodox Hinduism. In order to infuse new life into the ancient religion without breaking the continuity of the tradition, the apostle to the South had been a person of great intellectual attainments, of unflinching devotion to the ideals, and of deep reverence of the forms of worship and religious practices sanctified by the authority of succession of great teachers. Swami Ramakrishnananda Ji Maharaj, or Shashi Maharaj, as he was familiarly called, possessed all this, and in addition he had overflowing kindness, abounding sympathy for all, and childlike nature which exhibited the inner purity of the soul. Shashi Bhuvan Chakravarti, that was the name, a pre-monastic name of Swami Ramakrishnananda Ji Maharaj, was by which Swami Ramakrishnananda Ji Maharaj or Shashi Maharaj was known in his pre-monastic days. Was born in an Orthodox Brahmin family of the Hooghly district Bengal on 13th July 1863. His father, Ishwara Chandra Chakravarti, was a strict observer of religious traditions and a devout worshipper of the Divine Mother, and gave the early training that laid the foundation of the lofty character exhibited in the life of his great son. Shashi Maharaj went to school and having successfully completed the school courses and entered the Metropolitan College in Calcutta, and he was brilliant student at college. His favorite subjects were literature, both English and Sanskrit, mathematics and philosophy. He and his cousin Sarat Chandra, afterward Swami Shardananda Ji Maharaj, came under the influence of the Brahmo Samaj. Sashi Maharaj became intimately known to the Brahmo leader Keshav Chandra Sen and to the Brahmo leader Keshav Chandra Sen, and was appointed private tutor to his son. Next, the life with Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. On a certain day in October 1883, Sashi Maharaj and Sarat Maharaj, along with few other companions, arrived at Dakshineswar to see the master. Sri Ramakrishna received them with a smile and began to talk to them warmly about the need of renunciation in spiritual life. Shashi Maharaj was 10, reading in the first art class, and the other was prepared for matriculation. As Sashi Maharaj, the oldest of the band, the conversation was addressed to him. So Ramakrishna asked Sashi Maharaj whether he believed in God with form or without form. The boy frankly answered that he was not certain about the existence of God and was not therefore able to speak one way or the other. The reply pleased the master very much. Shashi Maharaj and Sharat Maharaj was fascinated by the personality of Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, whom they henceforth accepted as their master and the pole star of their life. Of Sashi Maharaj and Sarat Maharaj, Sri Ramakrishna used to say that both of them were the follower of Jesus Christ in a former incarnation. Although Shashi Maharaj was a brilliant student, his interest in the college curriculum began to dwindle. Slowly and silently, he was progressing in the life of the spirit, and here his keen intellect and robust physique and steady character were beginning to the center round the one grand theme of God realization. One day at Dakshineswar, it happened that he was busily engaged in studying some Persian books in order to read the Sufi poets in the original. The master had called him twice before he heard. When he came, Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa asked him what he had been doing. Bhagavan Thakur was asking that what he was actually doing. Shashi Maharaj said that he was absorbed in his books. He quietly remarked, "If you forget your duties for the sake of study, you will lose all your devotion." Shashi Maharaj understood. He took the Persian books and threw them into the Ganga, the Ganges. From that time on, book learning had little importance in the scheme of life. Shashi Maharaj was then in the final BA class. The examination was fast approaching, but at that time, Thakur was lying ill at Shampukur in Calcutta. The young disciple had to decide between his studies and service to the person of the master. Unhesitatingly, he decided to give his body, mind, and soul wholly and unreservedly to the service of the master. He also followed the master to the Kasipur garden house. Shashi Maharaj was the very embodiment of this service. Other disciples also gave their very best of the service to the master, but Sasi's case was conspicuous. He knew no rest. He did not care about any other spiritual practices. Service to the Guru was the only concern of his life. Fortunately, he was endowed with a strong physique. But more than that, behind a body there is a mind whose strength was incessantly sustained by his love and devotion to the existence of the Mass and devotion to the Guru. Till the last moment of the earthly existence of the Master, Sasi was unflagging in his zeal to serve him as best as he could. Before Sir Ramakrishna lay down for the final departure, he sat up for some time against 5 or 6 pillows, which were supported by Shashi Maharaj, who was at the same time fanning him. When Master was in Mahasamadhi, the disciple could not at first realize what it was. Shashi rebuked those who thought that it was otherwise than Samadhi, and along with the others began to chant the holy text. Despite their earnest hope, the body did not indicate any sign of life, and the doctor finally declared it to be Mahasamadhi. The greatest was at the burning heart. The feeling of the constructed character visited the soul of Sashi Maharaj. Now the joy and bliss of the master had shed over them all came over him, and they sang the name of the master in triumphant praise. Then a sense of utter loneliness stole over his joy and made him the victim of the most violent grief. When the flames of that had made ashes of the body of the master had died out, amidst the silence that prevailed, Shashi gathered the sacred feelings. This was the part with the Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. Now we will be going to discuss the Sasi Maharaj as a monk and a teacher. In day-to-day dealings, Swami Ramakrishnananda Ji Maharaj was full of overflowing love. He have seen how at the Baranagore Monastery he was like a mother to all, taking extreme care of them. When any brother disciple of his came to the south on pilgrimage, he would be beside himself with joy and did not know how sufficiently to take care of him. All feelings of Swami Ramakrishna Maharaj well poured as it were when the Raja Maharaj, Rakhal Maharaj, Swami Brahmananda Ji Maharaj visited the south, and there was nothing he would not do for him. His attitude towards Swami Brahmananda Ji Maharaj was a logical outcome of his devotion to the master. Because Ramakrishna Paramahamsa loved Raja Maharaj so much, and Swami Ramakrishna Maharaj, Sashi Maharaj also treated him more with reverence than with brotherly love. It was shy to see Ramakrishna Sashi Maharaj with his bulky body prostrate himself before his great brother disciple in all humanity. Similar attitude in Sasi Maharaj, though in a more intense degree, was in evidence when the Holy Mother, with a party of women devotees, came to the south on pilgrimage. Said that on this occasion he worked so hard to remove even the slightest inconvenience that might befall the party that his health permanently broke down. It was to the great loving heart that Ramakrishna Mission student home in Madras owed its origin. At Coimbatore, he once founded all the members of family except few helpless children had been swept away by the plague. The pitiable condition of these poor children was too much for the loving heart of the Swami when he took charge of them. This was the genesis of the educational activities of the mission in South, and which have been since expanded very greatly. A teacher, he cared more for building up lives than for reaching the wide circle of indifferent auditors. He was a strict disciplinarian and insisted that all who came under his influence be perfect and exemplary in every detail every detail of their conduct. Once a student was found sitting in his class with his chin resting on the palm of the hand. He at once said, do not sit like that. It is a pensive attitude. You should always cultivate in a cheerful attitude. Sometimes thoughtless visitors to the mutt would take out the daily paper and began to read. The Swami would at once administer a mild rebuke, saying, "Put away your paper. You can read that anywhere. When you come here, you should only think about God." Once a proud Pandit came to the mutt and began to talk of his plans for reforming temples, society, and so on. Swami Ramakrishnananda Ji Maharaj listened to him quietly for some time, and then he opened his lips to remark, "I wonder what God did before you were born." The man at once became silent, and the conversation turned to healthier things. The man afterwards left the mutt with a better attitude of mind. Once Sasi Maharaj and American devotee were putting in the royal guest quarters at Bangalore as the guest of Maharaja of Mysore. One day, a member of Maharaj's official staff came to see him. The visitor began to detail some court gossip to the American devotee, thinking that it would be a very entertaining topic for the conversation. All that while the conversation was going on, Swami Ramakrishnananda Ji Maharaj shifted his position in his chair again and again, showing his evident sign of great discomfort. When asked if he was feeling unwell, Swami unsophisticatedly said, "I am all right, but I do not like your conversation." The visitor, however, took the rebuke without any offense and changed the subject of conversation. Mahasamadhi. His own life was extremely disciplined, and he was very regular and punctual in his habits. He would follow the he would follow his self-imposed daily duties under any circumstances. As a rule, he began the day by reading the Gita and the Vishnu Sahasranama. Once Swami passed the night outside the mosque to keep company with Swami Premananda. When the latter was on pilgrimage in the south, in the night, Swami Ramakrishnananda Ji Maharaj had not with him the Gita and the Vishnu Sahasra Nama. When he discovered this, he went to someone out to procure copies of the two books so that he might not miss the reading them the next morning. Next morning. Though in managing the monastery he was stern disciplinarian, at heart he was extremely soft and kind. Once, when the time came for departure of his junior Swami of the order, who had come to Madras, Shashi Maharaj fed him well sitting by him and actually burst into tears when the latter was about to leave. Another time, Shashi Maharaj had to go on to Bengal, and when he visited Calcutta, he learnt about that a young brahmacharin of the order who had for some time lived with him at Madras was lying ill at his parental home in the city. The Swami himself went to see the patient at his home. At this, the brahmacharin was dumbfounded. The Sasi Maharaj, who was held in such high esteem throughout the country, should come to his bedside. He could hardly believe his eyes. It was his love for humanity that impelled him to work so hard in Madras. But after some time, the body gave indication that it could no longer stand the stress of so much hard work, and yet the and uh, the spirit was there. The Swami did not listen to the whisper of the flesh. In spite of his indifferent health, he carried on his hard labor till the body completely broke down, and the doctor diagnosed the disease as consumption. Word was sent to Calcutta, and his fellow monks were there begged him to pass his last day with them. This he felt was best. He had thought of it, but not until command came from the president of the mission. Did he leave Madras? In Calcutta, his house was the at his he was housed at the monastery of in Bagbazar, and mostly noted physicians visited him of their own accord. But condition grew worse. Most remarkable, however, was the strength of the spirit which burst forth in eloquent discourses concerning his high spiritual matters. Discourses matters even whilst the body suffered most. One who loved him dearly, noticing him speak thus in this distressed state of his body, asked him to desist. Why? Came the reply. When I speak of the Lord, all pains leaves me, and I forget the body. Even in the delirium in his mind and his voice were given to God. Durga, Durga, Shiva, Shiva. And the name of the Master was were ever on his lips. His esteem and love for the Christ was manifest through his lifetime, revived constantly in those days. Speaking of Jesus, he would become eloquent. He would speak of how Thakur Shri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa regarded Christ, and how when the Master had a vision of Christ during Mahasamadhi, the very body of great founder of Christianity had entered into him. Pujapado Srimad Swami Ramakrishnananda Ji Maharaj entered into final realization on 21st August 1911. So this was today's discussion. We have come to end of our program. I hope all have liked today's session. Before I would end this session, I would like to give, I would like to give a sashtang pranam, offer a sashtang pranam to another holy life and another disciple, great disciple of Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. I offered my sashtang pranam to on the feet of Shashi Maharaj from Ramakrishnananda Ji Maharaj. ॐ पूर्णमद पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते हरिः ॐ तत्सत् श्रीरामकृष्णार्पणमस्तु. धन्यवाद. Coming into this session, our next live streaming will begin from 6:10 p.m. with the Bandana, Guru Bandana and Sandhya Ratrikam. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.